So it is Sunday the 17th and I said I'd do these in the morning so I didn't get too tired. Naturally it is now the evening because I can't seem to stick to anything that I say I'm going to do. Once again I have a sign to keep myself on track, getting off track already. Magnetic whiteboard. This normally lives on my bandsaw. It's great for taking notes, dimensions, that sort of stuff, particularly when you're at the rough stage and you need to just have a big sign that tells you what you're doing. First up is a sign that I made for my uncle. My cousin requested this. Her father has just built himself a new shed, so she commissioned a sign for, opening that up. I haven't done something that scale before, V-carve wise, so that was fun to do. It was interesting because I used the S79 mask. This one, it looks very similar to the 85G and there's not a huge difference. The S79 doesn't have as much tack within the first 12 hours. After 24 hours they're about the same, but the 85G costs a little bit more per meter. And I hadn't had great results with the S79, but I hadn't done all the full testing of, what level of sanding you need to do and all those bits and pieces. So really pleased with how that ended up. No video on that because it's just a quick thing for family. But the S79 performed fantastic. So that means I can save a few bucks when I'm buying more masks in the future. So now I kind of want to do a sign for myself, but I have a long list of other things to do before that. Speaking of my lists of things to do, I've got 3 future projects, large projects. So a lot of projects are very much get out here and do it and knock it over in a week. Others will require at least a week's worth of planning every day to figure out the designs, that sort of thing. I've got 2 furniture projects I want to do as well as a workshop project. I want to make an edge belt sander. That's where the belt is horizontal and you've got a big table. Unlike the little guy I've got just, where is he? There. I was originally going to go for a disc sander. For a lot of stuff I do, a disc sander would be great, except the actual usable size of a disc sander is pretty small. 12-inch disc sander, you really only have 6 by 6 inches at a particular point in the dead center. Once you move off from that center, you're not actually getting much surface area. So I think a belt sander makes more sense. And unfortunately the price of edge belt sanders in Australia is not great. A 6x48 will set you back at between $600 and $700, and a 6x89 inch will set you back over $1,000 for the base models. So that's something I'm looking at building. I know there is Matthias's design out there. There are a few things I'd do differently to that based on the materials available, some design differences mostly. Like I don't need a flipping table or anything like that, so I can simplify a lot of those elements. And a few things that I just want to experiment with rather than knowing it's better. In fact, it's probably going to end up worse, but I would like to experiment with them. So that should be interesting. If anyone has an edge belt sander, if you've got a 6x48, have you ever wished you had larger? And if you've got a 6x89, do you ever wish you'd have smaller? They're the 2 common belt sizes you can get, so you don't need to get a custom belt size made up. The 6x89, so that's 150mm tall by 2.2 meters long. So the belt sander would take up about 1 meter, once you account for the diameter of the wheels and all that. So it takes up a fair bit more shop space, but could be worth it. I'm not sure. The other project we will be getting into is the Wood Whisperer Guild's gaming table. It's going to be quite different from Mark's table. I need knockdown legs. We are upstairs, we live upstairs, so it has to go around a not great corridor and all of that, so there's no way we could get a normal dining table upstairs if the legs don't come off it. So I'm thinking those metal corner brackets, but full mortise and tenon into the legs, just not glued in. So the brackets will just pull it in and the mortise and tenon will give it a lot of strength before glue, or without glue. The other thing is the TV unit, and that's going to feature a sculpted panel or a sculpted door. So I've shown you this sculpture thingy, river, sand dunes, whatever. I don't think I've shown it off painted. So this is just with a white primer on it, just for, well, to see how it looked. It's just one coat on both halves of it, but this is the unsanded portion. It's really interesting how much of the grain shows through and all the little details. We wouldn't use paint, we'll be using the Osmo wood wax like we did on the desks, just the white version of it. So that's going to be interesting. That'll be a sliding door to get to all the electronics, and there'll be a IR forwarder built into the cabinet so that the cat can't get to all our wiring, and it'll just be a nice contained box type thing. I've only done a little bit of design work on that. Hopefully I'll remember to put screenshots of that on screen, but I'm liking how it's coming up so far. Those projects aren't going to happen until next year, but I can do a lot of the planning and a lot of the other projects I've still got left to do now that the Christmas stuff is all out of the way for my wife's family. I can sort of get back in here and not feel guilty that I'm not working on things for the wife. Though it's not on my list, I did start the socket head cap for the socket head cap screw for my Allen key. Used the Bosch drill press for that, and I'm really liking that. It was less happy with the 38mm diameter bit, but that bit is pretty dull now, so I'm not overly surprised. But it did it without stalling or really slowing down at all. It just sounded a bit less happy than it did with, say, a 35mm carbide bit, which is a lot sharper. So for what I want to do in wood, I've only got one situation where it wouldn't work. I'll get the bit that wouldn't work for it. This guy. So this is my 35mm bit. Get in focus. Not too bad. This is a 67 or 75 or something like that bit. I don't remember the size exactly, but it is big. This was for some pencil holders, and I was just drilling it out on the drill press. This actually broke parts of my drill press, though it did work pretty well. This was drilling into plywood cylinders, so I had to sharpen this every, I think it was every 1.5 pencil holders. I'd have to sharpen this because it would just stop cutting. So if the Bosch drill press doesn't handle that, I'm actually not that concerned. I bought it for a very specific purpose and I've never used it again. I don't think I even want to. It was a monstrous task. So again, the awkward part of this video is going to be talking about Patreon. So if you haven't been following from my previous video, I talked about how Patreon was upping fees, or basically transferring fees from creators onto the patrons and decoupling payments so that patrons would be being charged considerably more and were basically being punished if they were supporting more than one creator at a low tier. They have gone back on that stance and they're not going to go ahead with that change yet. I don't trust Patreon. There was 6 days of silence where they announced the thing, they doubled down on the thing, their CEO had a conversation with a big creator who went, "Ooh, this still looks a bit dicey." Then there was 6 days of silence before they went, "Oh yeah, by the way, we're not doing this anymore." So for those who do make their living, not me, but other people who make their living off Patreon, they were not happy, and rightfully so. Suddenly they were losing hundreds or thousands of dollars because Patreon weren't talking, basically. So some people have come back, both on my Patreon and others, which is good, and thank you for those who have. They claim that they were working on these changes for over a year and didn't consult anybody about them, and somehow didn't notice that this would be bad for everybody. is a bit sus, and then their reversal of the stance, while good for the community, also shows that their language used shows that they still intend to go ahead with the changes eventually, but they just need to figure out how to sell people on it. So, as I said, I'll be moving away from it. So going forward, I won't be advertising Patreon anywhere. So video cards, video descriptions, they will no longer have links to Patreon. I've already taken off various profiles on Twitter, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not going to retroactively take it out of videos and things like that. Not at this stage. I'm adding a tip jar on PayPal. I know not everyone likes PayPal, but it is ubiquitous. It is easy both as a consumer and a small business. There are affiliate links to Amazon. I buy a bunch of stuff from Amazon: saw blades, router bits, accessories for the table saw, for my plunge router, general shop accessories like acid flux brushes, probably, oh, sandpaper. Get these Abranet discs from there. So you get a kickback, no, I get a kickback, you don't get charged any extra, so sort of win-win there. Merchandise, I've got these Lizard Bro t-shirts that my wife has designed. They're on Threadless. I'm really happy with these actually. Bunch of different designs from her, as well as the Wood Knight logo. We do have an Etsy store. Bunch of different ways that if you want to support us, you can, but you don't have to. I'm not trying to beg for money or anything like that, but if you think it's worth $1, there are a variety of different ways that you can support us that works for a bunch of different people and budgets, and as I said, affiliate links, you're not getting charged any extra. But even just, sharing videos helps quite a lot. So not trying to beg, but following up from the whole Patreon saga, I'm still not happy with that. So I think in the new year I might reevaluate a lot of that. If you're interested in those other ways to support us, I wrote an article on it on my website, and there's a link to that below. So I think that's it for this video. Hopefully I will be less ranty and rambly in the next one. Thanks for watching.